Dear Diary, it has been a week since I have parted with my hair. I feel as though the shock value of showing people my lack of hair has caught up to me. They're no longer surprised. I feel as though now I must continue to rely on my personality to impress people. It does not bode well. What's up, everybody? My name is Sam, and this is the internet where things happen. And today, I'm not necessarily going to be doing anything, which kind of defeats the purpose of the name of the channel, doesn't it? Well, video's over. I guess you could say that I am doing something, and that I'm doing a vlog, like an actual vlog where I talk about like stuff and myself and things and stuff of that nature. So today, May 5th, as you're watching this, will be the 3-year anniversary of me arriving in Seattle after making the choice to depart from my home of Ohio to pursue opportunities out here on the West Coast. And what I want to do is I kind of want to talk about a little bit of what led to that decision, kind of my journey to get from there to here, and, kind of go from there. So bear with me. We'll see if this is interesting or funny. I'm going to try and tell jokes. I don't know why that's different from any other time. It doesn't stop me from being unfunny in every other video. Whenever I get the question about where I'm from, it is always a little bit difficult to answer that question, and you'll find that a lot of people who were in the situation that I was may or may not have a similar difficulty answering that question, because my father was in the military. He was in the Air Force. And so my life has not traditionally centered around one particular place. I have various attachments to the places that I've lived, which is, admittedly, a very small list compared to some other people who have been in the same situation as I have. I was born in Arizona. I have a lot of love and attachment to Phoenix and that area because of, I was born there. My grandparents are still there. My siblings are there. So I have an attachment. My sports team is there. My football team. Shockingly enough, being a fan of the Cardinals in Seattle is a problem. I'm convinced that the sticker on my window is the reason why a lot of people don't let me merge into traffic when they should. So I do have a lot of attachment to Arizona, but I think when somebody asks me, where are you from? I don't typically lead with Arizona. Or Phoenix or Glendale or wherever you, however, macro you want to narrow it down, right? Usually as the conversation proceeds and people ask questions and learn more, then it kind of gets into I was born here, I lived here, I'm from here, blah, blah, blah. This is where I consider myself from. I think part of that kind of lends itself to the fact that I was a kid. I was very young when I lived in Arizona. And so I'm very familiar with the place and the area, but I didn't really experience a big chunk of life in Arizona, right? My family was deployed to England. My dad was, and we moved with him. And I was there until I was 3. And then my parents split up and I moved back to Arizona while my dad remained. And I lived there until I was about 12. I have my connections there. I obviously have my family. And then, I have my 1 or 2 friends that I grew up with there. But I don't have a huge this is a difficult thing to say, because I don't want to come across like I don't appreciate or love where I was born, because I do. But I don't have a big, my hometown pride doesn't necessarily come from Glendale, Arizona. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't typically lead with, hey, I'm from Arizona. The second place that I lived in Ohio for a couple of years. After a certain point, I went to go live with my dad, who at the time was stationed in Ohio, where he is from. He's from Lima, which is a smaller town up north of Dayton. he was stationed there for a couple of years before he got stationed to go off to England, which is back to England, which is I went with him that time. And I lived there for a few years with him. This was around the time that he met my stepmother, Tammy, who was wonderful. And I think for the first year we lived in England, it was just me and my dad, and then Tammy and her son, my stepbrother Rodney, moved with us and lived with us there until we moved back to the States. When my dad retired, he retired to Dayton, Ohio, which was close enough to his hometown that he could be near my grandparents and his siblings, but was better for jobs at the time. And so I would graduate high school in Ohio. I would meet a ton of awesome friends in Ohio. I would just, like, my life kind of started in Ohio, right? When people ask me where I'm from, I don't hesitate usually. I'm from Ohio. I'm from Dayton. You know, look, I get it. Ohio is kind of a meme. We say ope a lot. There's lots of corn. You know, it's a meme. But there's something about it, man. There's something about Ohio. There's something about Dayton. There's something about like all those cities around that area that, like, I don't know. It's got a special kind of spirit about it, you know? And it's just like any other place. It has its bad parts. It has its bad stuff. But, I mean, that's where I'm from, man. I graduated high school there, and I lived there for 10 years before I decided to make this change. I was there for a full-on decade. And it was a time. I met a lot of the greatest people I've ever met in Ohio. A lot of, like, so many of my friends. I had such a great network of friends when I lived in Ohio, and I still do have that network. Like, they didn't go away because I moved, you know. I met a lot of great people. I got a lot of great experiences. And, you know, I learned to drive in Ohio. First time I ever fell in love was in Ohio. Like, I just had, like, all the dumb shit that I used to do and did in Ohio. You know what I mean? So I've got a lot of love for it. And I think my decision to leave was predicated on a couple of factors. And I think as much as I love Ohio and Dayton, and as much good stuff happened to me and for me in Dayton, my problem was always that a lot of bad stuff happened too. A lot of, like, interpersonal stuff really affected me. Really kind of I had a lot of depression and anxiety and, like, issues and things like that. And it wasn't Ohio's fault. It was just the situations that I put myself in and surrounded myself with. And so, I had a lot of problems. Work was, really miserable. I felt myself spinning my wheels. I felt like I was trapped in a dead end. I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand myself. I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand a lot of stuff. And I just felt trapped and sad and just kind of not okay, usually. And so I knew that I needed a change, but I didn't know if I was going to be capable within myself to commit that change. Change is scary, man. Sometimes change can suck. Sometimes building to a major change is one of the most impossible things you will ever do in your life. And I fully recognize that. But, sometimes moments happen and they force your hand and force you into change. And sometimes that can be bad, but a lot of times that's a really good thing. In 2016, that was when change kind of came knocking on my door. My very good friend Kevin, who I've known for years and years at this point, almost as long as I lived in Ohio. Like, I met him pretty soon after I started, like, working and doing my thing. It was his birthday come August of that year. I mean, every year. Kevin's birthday is in August every year. I didn't know if you you knew that, but that's how birthdays work, is that it's usually on the same day every year. So, I mean, go figure, right? Kevin and I are part of this group on Facebook called Talking Ship. And Talking Ship is a very special group because it's a bunch of people who are very similar in their interests and the things that they love, and like to clown on each other and just have a lot of fun. And it's like a super important like group to me. They're some of the best people I know are in the Talking Ship group. I met Justin, my roommate, through Talking Ship. I met some people that I'm going to talk about here in a second through Talking Ship. And it all kind of started as like this group. It was this gaming forum back in the day. I won't get too deep into it, but it's important to know what Talking Ship is. It's a bunch of like gaming friends that like get together and have fun. And, you know, Talking Ship was this group, and Kevin joined the group. I believe, I'm pretty sure it was at my recommendation. I'm going to take credit for Kevin being a part of that group, because there's no other way he would have met those people except through me. I'm pretty sure. I'm Kevin. I'm sorry. It was my fault. But Kevin wanted to do something for his birthday. He wanted to like go branch off, do some kind of adventure. And one of the things that came up was Seattle. Let's visit, you know, let's go hang out and have fun in Seattle. And what wound up happening was these two people that we both met through Talking Ship, Jason and Chelsea, wonderful married couple. Didn't know a whole lot about them at the time. I actually didn't really even know Chelsea at all, just Jason. Met Chelsea when we went out to visit. And these two they're as important to me as family at this point. Like that's who they became to me. So it just became this thing of let's go visit Seattle. So me and Kevin went. Justin, who at the time lived in Nevada, from Nevada, also decided to come out. Our friend West, who at the time lived in Alaska, also decided to come out, and we all just kind of converged on Jason and Chelsea's house. And we had a really great, we stayed there for a couple of days, and we went to a Mariners game. It was actually Ken Griffey Jr.'s like rafters ceremony, like they were retiring his number. It was this huge deal, and we had a lot of great beers, and we had a lot of fun. We visited the city. Like, we had a great time, and it was a lot of fun. And at the last day, we went to where Jason and Chelsea worked. Jason took the day off to, like, hang out with us and get us to the airport, and Chelsea worked, and so we met Chelsea for lunch. I did this mostly as a joke. Because I didn't I responded because I did know the thing that she was about to bring up, but I didn't think it was something I could pull off. Something you have to know about me is that I burned out hard after high school, right? Just like not like burnout like you like I sunk to rock bottom and then like ruined my life and whatever. That's not what I mean. Like burnout, like I was tired, man. Like I graduated high school with honors. Like I had opportunities in front of me to go to school, and I know that the fact that I didn't was a little bit disappointing to a couple people. I know he didn't overstate it, which I'm always thankful for, but like I could feel that my dad was disappointed, I think, that I didn't go to school. At the time, at least. The expectation when you have a kid and you raise a kid, right, is that you're going to raise the kid, they're going to do well, they're going to make friends, they're going to go to school, they're going to get a job, they're going to, get married, have kids, and then take care of you, right? So that's the progression. And you love them along the way. And I think, like, he had that expectation for me, for sure, because what my dad did was, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but he went to school for a year and then joined the military. And I haven't really talked to him about like the reasoning for that, but what I think he wanted was something better for me so I could branch out and do the thing. So when I tell you that I was not expecting, to be getting jobs in the industry that I currently work in with my background and level of education. I truly mean that. I was working at a mattress store. I was miserable. I had no idea where I was going in life, and I thought I was doing okay selling mattresses and being a salesman. Even though I hated it, in my heart, it killed me inside to be that kind of person, even though I was pretty good at it. And, it just was never for me. And so I didn't expect, I just expected my life to be just a constant string of retail and sales. And yeah, I could be a manager in those industries, but it just wasn't something that sparked joy in my heart. When we were sitting at lunch, Jason and Chelsea were having a conversation about this job that was coming up. Chelsea mentioned that the person who would get this job would need experience in Adobe. And one of the things that I did growing up is that I taught myself how to use Photoshop and, all these different Adobe applications just for fun. I was poor. And so I didn't necessarily obtain the Adobe suite in the most scrupulous of ways. And we'll leave it at that. That has changed now. As a 15, 16-year-old kid, I found ways to use Adobe and taught myself. And I did I made art for dumb forums to put in signatures and stuff like that. And I just always Photoshop people onto things. And it was it was something that I enjoyed doing. And when Chelsea said the person who does this job needs to be able to use the Adobe suite, I said, I can use the Adobe suite. And Chelsea said, really? And I said, yeah. And she goes, are you looking for a job? And I said, I could be. And she says, would you be willing to relocate to Seattle? And I said, fuck yeah. And that's kind of where it started. It snowballed. We went home. I went back to my job. And then Chelsea started coaching me and helping me punch up my resume and help me submit, apply for a job out there. It was really easy to almost give up when I got that first rejection. I was just I'll never be able to do this. These are jobs that require X years of, experience plus this degree and blah, blah, blah. So I was I'm never going to do this. Sometimes that you have that voice in your head that tells you that you can't do something, and it's super easy to just listen to it. It becomes an issue, and that's why a lot of people don't go for things, because they listen to that voice and they're scared. So answering that voice and listening to it is a human thing. But breaking out and saying, no, I can keep doing this and I can prevail and succeed is super important as well. Sometimes for your own sake, ignoring that voice and breaking out of your box and moving forward is incredibly important for your own personal development and for your own happiness. And I was so unhappy and I didn't know what else to do. And so, yeah, I didn't listen to the voice and I let Chelsea and Jason keep helping me. And I applied for another job and I wasn't quite there in that respect. But what wound up happening is that Bjorn, who is a wonderful person, my first boss when I moved to Seattle, he said, look, I like you. You're a good interview. I'm going to put you on our bench. And if something comes up, we'll call you and have you apply for that. And I said, sweet. That sounds great. So eventually, this project coordinator job within a construction project service team popped up. And Bjorn called me back and said, hey, we want you to apply for this. I said, cool, let's do it. And I did. And I interviewed and I got the job. The thing that I didn't tell a lot of people, especially my family, because that's that's prime anxiety stuff, is that the position itself was not a full-time position. It was a temporary position. I got the phone call when I was at work, and I stepped outside to make the call. And Bjorn told me, hey, think about it. Call me back on Monday, because it was a Friday, I believe. And he said, call me back on Monday. Tell me what you think. And then we'll go from there. I talked to my dad. I talked to Chelsea, and I wound up accepting the position. The expectation was that if I did well, it wouldn't be a temp position forever. It was temp to hire, which, best laid plans, right? That's the idea. But like, I didn't know if I was going to be good at this. I didn't know anything about the world of construction projects and commercial real estate. Like, I knew nothing. I had no degree. I had no experience. I just had a good attitude and I had some managerial experiences, but that's it. I was just like, I didn't know. This could have been a mistake. I accepted the position and then I started making my plans and I started saying goodbye to all these people that, have meant so much to me over the 10 years that I lived in Ohio and as an adult. And it was hard. I cried a lot, which isn't, for anybody who knows me, is not a surprise that I cried a lot. I get that from my dad for sure, because my dad cries a lot. Wind blows wrong, my dad cries. It's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. That's one of my favorite things is that my dad was never like toxic in his masculinity and who he was. And so I learned from an early age that it was okay to feel things. It was okay to fucking be a human, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to be emotional and have those and have that, in your heart. And so I met a lot of people. I cried a lot. I think my favorite moment was with my friend Cheyenne. I was really into the Too Sweet, which is a wrestling thing where you do that and it's whatever. And Cheyenne refused to do it. And I think it was like one of my last nights, I had this huge gathering in this like bar and I had a bunch of friends there and I was drunk as shit and so was everybody else. And it was a lot of fun. And I said, Cheyenne, since I'm leaving, can I get a Too Sweet? She did. And I started sobbing. It was such a great moment. And yeah, I say goodbye to a lot of people that I love. To say goodbye to my family. And then it was time to go. This was a lengthy journey. I sold all of my big furniture, everything else, like my clothes, my TV, like my smaller things. I packed up into the back of my car and I booked it for the West Coast. And so I'm driving almost exactly across America. The only way I could have been further away is if I was in New York or somewhere on the East Coast. I was very close to being a full drive across America. This is the route that I took to get there. There was a lot there and I broke it up into 3-day chunks. 12 hours of driving. And I tell you what, I'm sure it would have been a fine trip if I had somebody else to break up the monotony of just driving all the time. But 3 12-hour days of driving is enough to drive a human insane. I felt like I was going to lose my fucking mind. It was not good. The first night I made it to Minnesota, a small town called Brainerd. Where I guess was where they actually filmed Fargo, the movie. I think. Could be wrong. I don't know. Don't quote me. Don't at me. Leave me alone. That's just what I was told. The next place I stopped on the second night was Big Timber, Montana, which if Big Timber was bigger than what I saw, it was probably a mile or two down the road, because what I saw of Big Timber, Montana was a parking lot with a hotel, a gas station, and a family diner, and it was something. It was interesting. It was an interesting place. Hotel was nice. It was a nice place. People were nice that I talked to, and I'm sure there was more to the town, but it was very small. Great view of the mountains, though. Big Timber, Montana. And driving across Montana was rough because it's literally just stretches of nothing, and the only saving grace is that I was able to drive 90 the entire time, except for the little bits of construction that there were. So that was cool. I just put it on cruise and was listening to musicals and podcasts and whatever I could get my hands on. After I left Big Timber, that was my final stretch. I was going to be there within the day. I left early that morning. I would have been there that evening. And it was getting closer. It was getting real. My one highlight, I think, from driving from Big Timber to Seattle was I was listening to a true crime podcast, and they were telling a story about this murder that took place in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And they started talking about it when I was crossing through Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And that freaked me out. Hated that. But that was my catalyst for turning the podcast off and turning on some like nice musicals to make me happy and not scared out of my mind. I was calling my dad and updating my family the whole trip. And I remember as I was getting close to my destination, my dad calls me. He goes, "Hey, are you there yet?" And I said, "Not quite. I'm like 5 minutes away." And he said, "Well, you're basically there." And we just had like a really quick talk, and he told me that he loved me and that to call him when I got settled, and I told him I would, and I was there. I made it. Emerald City, baby. Woo! I made it on May 5th, 2017. Nearly a year after that whole trip in the summer and that conversation that I had with Chelsea and Jason about changing everything. I showed up Jason and Chelsea's house. Justin came home from work because he had been living there. He moved a couple months before I did, back in March of that year. And he'd been living with Jason and Chelsea until I showed up so we could get our own place together. It was really surreal being there and knowing that like that was where I lived now. And I remember it was Cinco de Mayo. We ordered pizza for dinner. Took the weekend. Met up with some friends that we had out there. Got some extra clothes for my first day at work. And then that Monday, it's my first day. And it was just kind of the beginning of everything. I wound up getting a full-time position on the same team. It was the same position, just not a temporary position, within about 4 months. September of that year, I had a full-time position with the company, and that was a super big relief for me. I did good. Like, I think I'm far enough away from it where I can admit that I did a good job. I'm not like the hugest, most confident person in the world. Taking credit for like success is hard for me. Just being, I try to be humble, but like I get overly humble sometimes, and it's a detriment because I'm not, basking in the stuff that I should be. Like I'm not accepting and celebrating my achievements and all these other things. And so, it was hard to admit then that I did a good job, but I did. And it afforded me opportunities and new positions and things of that nature. And it got me to a place where I am now 3 years later. Still no college degree, just a good attitude and willingness to learn. A really great spot at work. I've met so many incredible people that I would consider at this point family. And it's just been such a wild ride. 3 years is, in the pantheon of time, it's not a huge, like, long time, but I've lived a lot of life in these 3 years. I've learned a lot about being myself. I've learned a lot about the things that I need in my personal growth. I've learned so much, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Do I miss Dayton? Yeah. Do I miss the people and the family? Yeah, of course. Every day. But I did something for myself then, and it made me a better person, and it gave me so many opportunities, and it let me meet so many incredible people, and I couldn't ask for better. Yeah. Couldn't ask for better. Hey, we want you to, talk to some people about this, and shut the fuck up, Justin.